I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
This is Fish Jelly.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. So, just to get through some things, I saw that Tyra Banks was on some show and she was asked about the movie The Bodyguard and who she thinks should.
Oh, God. She said Taylor Swift.
And this lady said Taylor Swift.
No.
So,
Yeah,
I don't agree
that.
with that. But then I was thinking who, because, I only knew this when you first told me years ago that originally that script was intended for
Diana
and Steve McQueen.
And Steve McQueen, and then I think there was another iteration in there.
But Diana Ross, Steve
Ryan
McQueen, or Ryan O'Neal combo would have been iconic. And then, of course, Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner eventually did it. And do I think that that's a perfect movie? No. But I think when you combine the star power of the two plus that damn soundtrack, it's definitely a moment.
Yeah.
So then to think like who would remake it, I think it would take more than like a popular artist. Obviously, Taylor Swift is a huge artist, but I don't know. But I think we had talked about this a year ago because someone had said someone else. Like I remember talking about this.
Yeah,
I had said that I thought Cardi B would make a good person only because I think she is a very likable, popular celebrity. And I feel like the story would have to be updated.
Yes.
And someone like her, I feel like it would, like more of a digital, I don't know. I don't need The Bodyguard to be remade, so.
No, there are some things we can just leave alone. It's fine because it's going to be born to lose because there's nothing that can compete against that soundtrack. Like, so I don't even know why, because the soundtrack, Whitney's voice is what made that film iconic.
Yeah, that's the other thing is the movie, I mean, is synonymous with the soundtrack, probably more so, right? Like more people know the soundtrack than the movie.
Right. So I don't know why we need to bother with that, but okay.
Well, because you couldn't redo the soundtrack, right? Like you couldn't sort of have a cover of it with contemporary artists.
No, it'd have to be a new flavor.
And then it's like, well, so that's just an entirely different movie then. Don't even call it The Bodyguard.
Exactly. Or I think Megan Thee Stallion, she could do it.
Well, yeah, someone like her or Cardi B. I think someone young, fresh, very likable, and then someone who updating it would make a lot of sense. But I don't know. After watching an episode of Black Mirror last night with Issa Rae, which we'll talk about on Patreon, I kind of also thought it could be fun if someone remade The Bodyguard and made it like during old Hollywood era.
Revisionist.
Yeah. In which case you could also take a lot of liberties, but anyway,
the sky's the limit.
Moving on, Ben Affleck was on Theo Von's podcast, and I've watched a couple of recent interviews Ben Affleck has done to promote The Accountant 2, which we have a review for on YouTube. But anyway, he seems a lot like lighter in his loafers. Maybe because he got that damn monkey off his back, aka J-Lo. I don't know, but he seems a lot more like peppy. But something he mentioned that I know we've talked about before, and it makes sense to me, but it was interesting hearing it come from his mouth. Is Theo was asking him about celebrity because he's been through a lot of phases. Both, I mean, sort of the peak of his paparazzi nonsense both revolved around J-Lo back in the early 2000s, and then when he decided to get back with her ass 20 years later. But of course, Theo also said, like, your public persona, because he goes, there's an image of you smoking a cigarette looking defeated that Theo said that he thinks about a lot. And Ben was just saying that it's unfortunate that it's hard for him to keep his private life private because he wants to continue working in the space he works in. And he genuinely sounds like someone who's not trying to get attention.
I don't think that he has ever seemed that way. It's just,
but then it's like, why would you date J-Lo? And then
and Jennifer Garner, and
But the thing that he said that I thought sounded really sincere coming from him is that it sucks that being a celebrity nowadays, so much of the illusion is gone because it's hard for audiences to connect with these actors who they know so much about their personal life. Like, I don't want to know. He named some actors from like the 50s and 60s, but he's like, I don't know what they ate. I don't want to know what they ate for lunch.
Yeah, I don't want to know what Brando was getting at Starbucks, you know?
Or that he wore sweats and flip flops and a baggy shirt to go get a sandwich. It's like that takes away from the illusion of whatever character they're trying to play. And so Ben was saying now that he directs films, when he casts people, he has to keep that in mind, that they have this public persona.
That all goes back to reception theory. The baggage, we all bring baggage in with these people that we feel like we know about.
But that's something that I think entertainers can control because, you know, these paparazzi aren't in Des Moines, Iowa. They're not in, you know, Austin, Texas. They're only in like really in this 3-mile zone of Los Angeles is where you really get all that action. So it's like, well, you also don't have to go get your coffee at some hotspot off Melrose and Robertson.
I think now,
you know, like you don't have to live over here. You can be flown in to do your work and then go back to living a normal life.
I agree, but if you're starting out, I think it's really tricky because you're expected to do all this kind of extra kind of work like that to market yourself. And I think people mistake it's like empty calories. Like you can't, what is the content that you're constantly putting out there, and is it meaningful? And if, you know, sometimes it's okay to have nothing to say.
Well, that's what Ben Affleck said. He said that unfortunately it's sort of a 360 situation where there's an expectation that you do promote yourself in a certain way, and like that's partially why they want you, is because there are a lot of eyes on you. So it's not all the entertainer's fault, but it is an odd. As a consumer, I want to be in the fantasy. I don't.
Well, it's weird because I saw a clip of Maya Hawke talking recently somewhere, mentioning that these younger stars, they're getting hired based on the number of followers they have.
Yeah.
On Instagram. Like somebody who I consider kind of a lesser performer than Saoirse Ronan won a role over her because she had bigger followers, like more followers, and it's like so there you know, there's that shit going on too. We're complicit in it.
Well, honestly, for my money, if I were a producer and it's between two people and it's the same fee and one has 6 million followers and one has no Instagram, I would definitely pick the one with 6 million and bake it into their contract that you need to post about this movie 4 times.
See, that's the thing where we're mixing up like the art and business side of the industry.
Right. And that's
because, you know, what is it? Paul Schrader's famous comment about like casting is going to make or break your film. So if you're casting purely on the number of followers people have, you're already doomed to have something subpar, because the kind of creative instincts that are going into making your film are
well, look at The White Lotus. I didn't even know that what was her name? Gay Talkin' Poon, or what Mook. That Poon. I know I'm gonna get messages about that. That was not intentional. Mook is a super famous artist, and I had no clue who that lady was.
Right. Because that's of a different culture. There's an and unless you're involved kind of in the international scene, you're not going to automatically know something.
Right, I know, but the point I was going to make is that it didn't matter. I don't think whether people, you know, millions of people know her or not, because her role, she didn't have anything to do. So I think actually it was kind of smart to have her sort of play this auxiliary character that kind of just had a singular purpose, because it's believable because she didn't have anything to do. And then you get all this attention off of this actor who he probably paid her the same fee because she doesn't need the money. All she probably needed was the appropriate security and all that to get her there. And then someone like her probably wanted an opportunity to be in something legit.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, and Ben Affleck said the same thing, that there's this intersection of, you know, business and art. And unfortunately, I think sometimes the business side oftentimes takes away from the quality of stuff. But
it does, and there's a lot of other compounded things baked in there, such as Americans and their ethnocentricity, Yeah, and I think that you bringing up this that actor from White Lotus is a good example of that. Like Americans are completely ignorant of anything that is outside of a very contained realm, really.
Well, I'm not going to co-sign on that statement.
They are. They don't read subtitles. That's why films that are not in English don't make money at the box office. You know, there's a lot of evidence to support that. Americans are very much collectively not interested in learning about anything other than themselves. It's true.
I don't know.
Because
I don't know what other people do. What do people do in Germany and New Zealand and Spain? Like,
they all watch American movies.
So if they all want to watch American movies, why would I make movies that aren't like American movies? I mean, you know, but again, I'm not saying that people aren't ignorant, but I don't think that it's exclusive to Americans.
I'm not saying, I didn't say it's exclusive to America. I'm just saying that
I think people, like, it's easy to consume things, and just because it's one area, like film.
It is easy to consume things, but that is why, let's extend it globally. Like, people aren't taught to be curious about things that don't involve themselves.
Yeah, but that's easy to say for someone who likes movies, because you don't involve yourself in a million other genres that you just don't care about, and that other people would say, how could you not know? I think it's fair to say that.
Oh, of course I have blind spots, but
right, and that's okay.
But I'm not I don't refuse.
Well, who's saying that people are refusing to read subtitles? It's just like, if I don't have to read them, why would I?
Who is that dummy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? She's a good example, who went on and a lot of people did, when Parasite won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, that they were being forced to.
Of course there are examples. I'm just saying that we can't, we hold our own standards to other people, but if people don't care about that shit, then they just don't. Well, and that's okay.
To me, there's a toxic level that goes beyond just not caring about it, is actively shunning anything that is not.
But it's preference. I don't like watching dub movies because I think it's distracting. Like, I can see that their mouths are moving different from the sound, and so I would prefer that they speak. Like, I would rather hear what they were actually saying, and I'm fine reading the translation. Mm-hmm. But that's just me. I also assume that the acting is probably better from the person who was saying it versus some voice actor trying to match it. So, but that's just for me. I don't disagree with you. I just, those are the kind of statements that get comments. Anyway, moving on.
Bring them. That is what that
well,
is.
You don't check the comments. I do. So that's,
no, I do. You haven't seen. I've been in there responding to some people that think that they want to talk.
But we get hundreds of comments a day. You're not going through all those comments.
Well, no, I get a little bored with it sometimes.
So it's real easy for you to just say crazy shit because you don't have to do.
I don't think what I'm saying is crazy, and I'm certainly not trying to.
Well, you can't make a blanket statement about an entire culture.
Well,
Americans don't like because I'll be honest, when non-Americans talk about Americans, it bothers me because we get a lot of comments like, you Americans don't like this, and it's like, don't put that on. I don't like when people comment on our videos, because it's like, I didn't say I don't like subtitles. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes I'll choose not to watch a movie that has subtitles because I don't want to pay full attention. And that's just me knowing where my interest level is at any given moment.
I think that,
if I just want mindless, dumb fun while I look for cars on my laptop, then yeah, I'm going to put on some stupid like I didn't mean to say X-Men is stupid, but something that I could passively consume versus, what's that movie we just reviewed, April? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of movie you got to pay attention to, Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to elect to watch April if I know that I can't pay full attention.
Yeah, and that's
so then you might.
It should be, right?
So if there were a fly on the wall, I'm not going to lie and say that they would never hear me say, "Does it have I ask you all the time.
Yes, you do.
Does this movie have subtitles?
And we have to plan for your focus to be there.
And it's not because I don't like subtitles. It's just I know that my attention span today is not where it needs to be to fully appreciate this work of art.
Yes, and that is completely fair. I don't think that you should be consuming art on command either. Like, you have to make it's what the choices you're making in your personal life. What space are you making for this? If you just want to watch a bunch of streaming bullshit, that's what they are doing. No, that's what the streamers are doing. They are designing stuff that you can have on in the background that you don't have to pay full attention to. That's why when you do pay full attention to it, you're like, this plot is inane and stupid. And who is this written for? It's written for people that are at the height of distraction that also are watching shit.
Right. But I think that also serves a purpose for some people. There are some people who like that kind of content.
You know what it should be? You know what they used to do with books? Who knows? They might still do this. But I was taught at a very young age in grade school by my grandmother that you don't read the abridged shit. You don't read Reader's Digest. She's like, that's all trash. That's all butchered. And I think maybe we need to get to a place where films are much like those. Because I remember some relative bought me like Oliver Twist, the abridged edition, that you could give to children, and my grandma's like, you should just throw that away because that's not the real. It's abridged. It's been altered. So I think that we should get to a place where maybe some of the streaming shit is like this was designed for you not to pay attention to. I don't know.
Well, I think reading the abridged version of something might be appropriate if you know that you only have a moderate interest and you're in a distracted area. Like maybe I want to be able to read Great Expectations because on my flight from Miami to New York.
That's like, I bought this pizza, but you're getting the version that has the less flavor for some reason. Why? What's the point then?
Well, that's a good analogy because the pizza analogy would be that I want the full pizza, but I just want a bite. So then maybe you just give me a slice because I don't want all pizza.
But of that slice, do you want it to taste like 70% less?
I'm saying that if I haven't read Pride and Prejudice and I don't necessarily care so much, but I feel like I should know the gist of it.
Well, that's what Cliff Notes are for then, right?
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
Wikipedia.
All these things serve a purpose, but it's up to the individual to decide what will meet their needs. That's not to say that if I had to critique some streaming bullshit that I wouldn't go in because this is ridiculous. This is poorly written, poorly acted. They clearly didn't take their time. But that's because you are actually making money talking about movies. But most people aren't, right? So then they're just sort of passively consuming them.
Yeah, but there was a time when that was not true, right? Where I was actively, passionately consuming things.
But that's
just
you.
To consume them.
That's you. Just like there are people who don't care as much about film, but they care much more about other things. And I think there's space for all of it, but that doesn't mean that it's not exempt from being critiqued. Like,
of course.
So that's
nothing should be.
So I'm not trying to pretend like they don't deserve to be critiqued. I'm just saying that I think those kind of bold statements are what get people in trouble. So moving on.
Well, shift the conversation. We should all be out there doing.
That's what I'm trying to do right now.
No, we should all be out there doing what we can to do to, because of course we get comments where people ignorantly think that we're just the same as the people that I'm talking about, and because they don't know me, they only see a small slice of me. But also, I'm strong enough to take that criticism and be like, "Oh, these motherfuckers don't know me." So that.
Well, we can't say the F word.
Oh, well, that was barely.
So we're staying in this low place. Okay, moving on. Since we had talked about it before, I saw on a gossip site, so whatever, about Toni Braxton and Birdman. So you know who Kimora Lee Simmons is?
Of course.
Okay, so Kimora Lee Simmons is Russell Simmons' ex-wife.
Was it something about the makeup on her neck?
Oh, wow.
Didn't some drag queen on Drag Race? Wasn't that?
Well,
am I remembering wrong?
I don't know. Well, I know that people used to make fun of her. This is out of her mouth because I used to be very into Kimora Lee Simmons back in the day. But I'm not going to repeat what people used to call her because it's derogatory. But basically a reference to her long ass neck. But anyway, apparently Birdman has been in this sort of side piece relationship with Kimora Lee Simmons and basically supporting her financially.
Really?
That's what this gossip site is saying. But apparently on the day that Birdman and Toni were set to be married, he showed up a little late and then he had to leave, and it was to go see Kimora. And that's what prompted Toni to file for divorce so quickly after
on the day.
That's what it said.
Okay.
So, I just think that's so messy. And, I really like Toni Braxton, and she definitely does not deserve
Well,
to be.
nobody deserves that.
No one does, of
Like,
course. You're right.
if that's not the agreement that you have established, of course not. No.
But, it's sad to see if that's true that she had to put up with that nonsense. If that wasn't, I'm assuming that wasn't part of their agreement, that you can continue to support this other lady who should be able to make money on her own.
I feel like, wait. Kamora Lee Simmons been married twice before. What were those? Like,
I don't know. Again, this could all be lies, but, I like Cheesemare, so here we go. Okay, moving on. I often bring up Shannon Sharpe on this podcast. And so, of course, last week I got a million messages about Shannon Sharpe. He is being sued by this young lady who alleges that he sexually assaulted her. I don't know. Of course I read about it. I don't know what's going on to make a judgment, except, what I felt overall is he just seems so dumb, because this girl is 19 and apparently he's been like a 2-year sexual relationship with her, where because of course all this audio leaked, that she leaked, that he leaked, and then his legal team actively put out the text messages between them. And then I listened to it, and to me it sounds like role playing. To me it sounds like, I don't know. I don't know what to say, except he just seems so stupid. He just seems so dumb. First of all, what is a 56-year-old man doing with a 19-year-old?
You know what they're doing.
I know what they're doing, but the thing is, part of me just thinks, the laws are clear. In some states, a 70-year-old could be in a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old, and I guess that's fine. To me, I think it's weird. It says a lot about you.
Well, yeah.
I'm 10 years younger than Shannon Sharpe, and I think me in a sexual relationship with a 19-year-old seems weird. So for sure, I think his black ass is just, what are you doing? That just seems creepy to me, because it seems like there's some manipulation, some control stuff that's happening. Mm-hmm. Also, then this might be controversial, but I feel like if a 56-year-old man is willing to have sex with a 19-year-old, then he's probably willing to have sex with an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Well, where they smoke this fire. But
I just think that's so weird. You know what else it makes me think of? That, and I bring this up all the time, the Chris Rock bit about minimum wage. And basically what it's saying is that if your employer's paying you minimum wage, what they're really saying is that if I could pay you less, I would.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I feel like if you're willing to have sex with an 18-year-old or whatever the age of consent is, as a 56-year-old man, to have sex with someone who's on that border, to me it's saying because that's what's legal. Well, if it were legal to be younger, I would.
A person like him is making these choices that have been exposed. I'm willing to bet that if you pull on that thread a lot harder, some other shit could come out. And so, remember that audio that leaked to him having sex with somebody?
Okay, so then I went down this rabbit hole watching all these gossip vloggers talking, and I didn't know that a month before that audio that you just referenced, well, it was actually an Instagram live that was only audio, so it was video, but we only heard stuff. Apparently that came out right after. So Shannon Sharpe has this stylist, the person who dresses him, and this person's name is Hollywood, and they're very obviously and openly gay.
Hollywood Montrose.
Well, they're very obviously openly gay. And so, of course, people were side-eyeing Shannon Sharpe okay, because they make fun of his clothes because all his clothes are too tight, they say. I don't disagree. And then Shannon Sharpe went to a couple of events with this person. Sitting courtside next to this, obviously gay man.
This suspicious homosexual.
Right. So then these vloggers I was watching were saying that, it seems oddly coincidental that after Shannon Sharpe got all this flack, which I wasn't privy to. Well, that's not true. I think I did hear. I'm not really into watching the gossip stuff on YouTube and on Instagram, but I think I did hear that people were sort of questioning his sexuality. And then he also sells those sexual enhancement drugs. So then I think
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his
Okay.
entire channel is
Like that shit you buy at the gas station, those
no, it's
tiger
all
pills or whatever.
no, it's all that Ro stuff, RO. Like he's like the
Oh.
spokesperson. So every video is him promoting Ro. But they were saying that he, initially it was like, oh, he leaked this Instagram live thing to promote those pills. But then of course people are saying maybe he also did it to distract from his sexuality. Either way, I don't know the details. I don't know what happened between these people, except I just like on a bigger level, I'm often curious why people choose not to engage in relationships with people who are on their level.
Uh-huh.
What do I look like dating a 19-year-old? What beyond like the physicality of it? Then it's like what sort of like, because a big part of interacting with people beyond sex is like, what kind of connection do we have? Like, do you understand my references? Do you get where I come from? And I just don't know what a 19-year-old and a 56-year-old have in common besides putting their parts together. I don't know.
Again, I think that is basic. That is it, and then there might be some financial motivation thrown in there, depending.
And then also, like, apparently, this young lady's family knew about Shannon Sharpe, and so it's like, what? He's probably older than her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they probably were only okay with it because he has money and celebrity, which of course makes me think of those parents who were talking about Michael Jackson, like, well, he would give us gifts and
or R. Kelly, those
trips
parents.
and it's like, so you're basically selling your child then.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I just, again,
until the child ages out of whatever like weird fantasy that the older person has for them.
A 56-year-old having sex with a 19-year-old is not illegal, but I think it says a lot about both of them, specifically the 56-year-old.
You have a really limited shelf life as a young person. And if that's all the people, I think as growing up, interacting with people much older than I am and feeding myself the narrative at the time that it's because I'm special, which kind of relates to the film we're going to talk about today. But, and realizing, looking back, it's like that person just wanted some young stuff that they could manipulate however they could, because they would never get to pull the stunts they did with someone that was on an equal level with them.
Well, right.
And that's what is that is what is happening. Stunts are being pulled, and maybe that's part of role play, maybe that's part of the agreement. But I think that if you engage in that kind of stuff when you're young, and then as you get older, you're like, oh, you hopefully gain some wisdom and insight.
But I think in some cases it's a form of sex work. Like,
yes,
if if this person's doing things for me and all they want in exchange is a little bit of this, then
it's emotional labor. That is part of sex work as well.
When I was younger, like 19, 20, living in Vegas and all my little raggedy associates, that was very much the attitude back then. Like, you wouldn't just, and maybe this was just very specific to where I was at that time and place, but it was just like, you would be considered a clown if you weren't getting something in exchange for your time. Like, people just weren't. And again, this was just my little crew, but it wasn't like you just weren't going on little coffee dates and then hooking up with people for funsies. It was like, oh, he paid my car payment. He took me here. He did this. It was an exchange. And so in some regard, it felt like it wasn't a waste of time. And I could see how nowadays, a person of the same age in 2025 could also justify it as like, well, this person bought me a $10,000 bag and took me to Bali. And so I don't blame the younger person for finding the appeal in it. I'm not attacking them. It's just in general. I think what I was trying to lead to is that, I'm 46 and I know people who are my age and older. And I'm here to let y'all know, if you bring a 19-year-old around me talking about this is your new whatever, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. Like, what are you doing? What?
If you see something, say something.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm not going to sit back and be like, oh, how many of Shannon Sharpe's, I bet buddies all think like, oh, look at that little hot thing you got and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what if that was your daughter?
Well, see that.
What if that, oh, but
that would be uncomfortable for
that
them.
That wouldn't be your daughter because you have money. So your daughter wouldn't be attracted to an older man.
Unless she's trying to get away from the control of her parents.
Although the gag is, she probably is. She probably is. You think your teenage daughter is not doing certain things, but she probably is.
Well, again, though, it is seductive to have some established, good-looking older person with money that is throwing that shit at you. That it feels good. So you can't,
I just think it's so creepy. Like, you're having this rough role play type sex with a woman who is younger than your children. To me, there's just something about that does not sit right with me.
Well,
but it's not to say that there aren't scenarios where it is not as lascivious, and I'm not judging I'm in no position to judge people's sexual exploits.
Well, no, and I think everybody should be allowed to have their private business remain private. So, I mean, what are the accusations against him? That he was assaulting her?
That she was forced to have sex against her will.
I mean,
and then the audio is
clearly that shouldn't happen.
And the audio of him is saying things like, "I'm gonna choke you," but it all sounds very role play to me. But again, I don't know, so I'm not speaking on any of that. I'm just speaking sort of globally.
Well, that's like that Army Hammer shit about like that would, to me that sounded like role play stuff that is like, well, that's private stuff between two people.
But Monique tried to tell Shannon Sharpe's ass, like, leave these young girls alone. And I think that maybe that's the energy I have with all this, is like, maybe we need to start holding the people around us more accountable for the kind of shit they get into. Like, that's real raggedy. That's real suspect. That, like, why are you trying to control another person? Why are you manipulating this child with, like, they
do it because they can. But
I know, but part of why they can is because people accept it.
Sure.
And maybe we need to be a little more upfront with the people around us that, like, this shit doesn't feel right. Like, this is kind of gross what you're doing. I'm not with that. Don't bring this child to my house for a dinner party.
Exactly. Yes.
Even like the movie The Coffee Table, how the brother has this young girlfriend. And I forget if it was the husband or the wife who was I think it was the wife who was kind of bothered by it.
Yes.
Like, don't bring this young bitch to my house. Like, and I have to sit here and pretend that it's not weird. I like that energy. Like, you can't. The last time I went to someone's house to socialize, I don't know if I should say this because they're probably listening. Anyway,
was it for a birthday party?
I'm not going to say what it was, but there was someone there with this kid.
Oh yeah. There have been. I think that was the cause of several evolutions of things later. But yeah.
And I wasn't close enough. Like I'm not going to say it.
You weren't close enough to make waves about this.
No, I wasn't. But if I were close enough with this person, like, what is your middle-aged ass doing with this 20-year-old crackhead? Like, first of all, it's embarrassing on many levels. And it says a lot about you.
Yes, it does.
I would never be seen with someone like that. Someone of my caliber, like, just like, doesn't even make sense. And all the shit I talk, and then it's like, and then I'm gonna be here with some kid who doesn't even know. Like, I mean, that shit is embarrassing. Y'all bring people to social things, and then all the adults are talking and they're confused. Like, who's Jody Watley? Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of shit I would like from when I was that age. But
Pat Benatar, or
they don't know any reference. They don't know.
Yeah, it's
not
boring.
that all 20-year-olds are stupid, but it's just like I'm really bothered by the fact that Shannon Sharpe just seems stupid.
They got a lot of catching up to do. That's what they got.
And then, of course, videos now are popping up of him at public events, and then like he seems all happy to interact with these young women.
Of course he does.
And it's like, dude, they only like you because you're famous and have money. That's it. Because there are, that's all I'm going to say about it. It really bothers me that he's just so oblivious to.
What was that episode of Strangers with Candy where is he a music teacher who's blind, and he has to write on his hands not to touch the girls.
Oh my God.
Because every time he's reaching out, he's like, oh, I can't.
Also, apparently he had hurt. Shannon Sharpe's legal team had offered this young lady $10 million to not go public.
$10 million.
And then, of course, it's like, well, you must be guilty but he said no, because it's He just didn't want all the private details of his sexual life out there.
Yeah,
and then also
that is worth something.
It is worth something because, this lawsuit is also being brought on by the lawyer who was trying to include Jay-Z in some sexual assault thing. And it's coming right after it was announced that Shannon Sharpe has some $100 million deal, podcast deal. So it does seem predatory if it's not true. So then $10 million is a small price to pay to not affect, $100 million deal and future deals.
And you would think that he would learn from something like this. Like, maybe these young ladies.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not
really
judging.
Trying to hurt me.
I'm not trying to convict Shannon Sharpe except for being stupid. Like, leave these children alone. Get you a woman. I'm sorry, a 56-year-old. I feel like you shouldn't be going younger than 40. Like, get a mature adult who has their own
and
shit.
Have them sign NDAs before you get it.
But, like you say, it's hard to be with someone who's on your level if you're about something.
Oh, yeah.
If both of you are raggedy, then whatever. But if both of you are educated, have well-paying careers, you're independent, it's hard to be together.
Yeah.
Right?
It's work. Well, because you're challenging each other.
Because you're constantly being challenged. But then I would argue, like, well, then just go get prostitutes then.
What's Tyler Perry doing? He's done like
Shannon, call Tyler and see what he does.
What do you do? I mean, he has an island. I guess he can some Dr. Moreau shit going on there, but you can, there's a way to be discreet and probably have their needs met the best way they can. But what Shannon Sharpe feels like, the way it's that new money behavior. Like you have all this stuff and you don't know.
But he's not new money. He's been in the NFL for, he started in the NFL decades ago.
Right.
He's been in the light where people want his attention. It's like, you haven't learned yet.
Exactly.
But let's move on to something more positive. 5 on the black hand side, 5 black filmmakers who are not Tyler Perry. Who do we have this week?
Keenan, Ivory, Wayans.
Y'all know Keenan.
About time we talked about him. Of course, his debut, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, is classic, right? And then he did, started that Scary Movie franchise with the first 2, which he directed, and then White Chicks by now is a cult classic. We recently watched A Low Down Dirty Shame, which has some elements that have not aged well, specifically with the queer characters, but it's still worth a look. And he was in his prime. And if you like Jada, she's in that too.
Well, and you can't mention Keenan without talking about In Living Color, which I know is not a movie, but
no, I have been focusing on films.
Yes, yes. Next,
Lawrence Lamont, who I don't know why I didn't bring this person up earlier, because we both were big fans and reviewed his debut film, One of Them Days.
Yes, I highly recommend.
Which is now on streaming. So if you
it's
haven't
on
seen
Netflix.
it,
yeah. Next,
Maggie Betts. I think I became aware of her because of her sophomore film, Novitiate, which has Margaret Qualley and Melissa Leo, and highly recommend that. I also like The Burial, which is an Amazon Prime release with Jamie Foxx and Tommy Lee Jones. So yes, if you haven't seen either of those, they're available.
Next,
Jerry LaMothe, who has directed many things. The only thing that I've seen, and I would say is quite notable as a black indie film from the 2000s, is Nora's Hair Salon, which there's a sequel to that I have not seen that he has directed. But if you like Jennifer Lewis, you should see Nora's Hair Salon.
And last but certainly not least,
Zoe Kravitz, also just a debut under her belt. I have a bunch of actors that have been directing films that I've been kind of holding off from these lists, but because they get enough attention anyway, right? But I was impressed with her debut, which the original title was Pussy Island.
Yeah.
But I liked Blink Twice, and I think she's setting up another project already. But yeah, impressive.
Thank you for that. All right, in the restaurant section, we tried 2 new places this past week. So first, at the Grove, although technically Farmers Market, there's a place called Window Burgers, which is at the site of the old, oh my God.
You used to work there.
I know, and I just blocked out the name of it.
Because it was terrible.
It was a terrible experience.
They served the food that made America great.
Oh my God, what is the name of that restaurant? I worked there.
Wood Woodgrove?
No.
Woodman's?
Woodbridge? No. Oh my God. What is the name of that restaurant? Wood Ranch.
Yeah.
When I was in beauty school, I worked at Wood Ranch at the Grove, but I think it's technically the farmer's market because there was always an issue with the parking.
A buffet for termites, Wood Ranch.
Yes. And then whenever people would call, we'd have to answer the phone. Thank you for calling Wood Ranch, the food that makes America great.
Yes, that is scarred.
And that was like, oh, I just hated
trauma.
I hated working there.
I remember they sent you home one day because
I refused to wear the no-slip shoes. And then one day I was walking in the kitchen and slipped, and the manager was screaming at me. So they sent me home. But I needed to work. So I'm like, let me go buy these. And then I bought Crocs. So then I flipped it and thought, I'm going to buy the ugliest non-slip shoes I can find. And so I bought these non-slip Crocs, like a restaurant.
God, that was like 20.
That was
2011.
It was a horrible. But anyway,
so you braved your emotional trauma, and we walked up to this little joint.
Well, the restaurant Wood Ranch has now been turned into a bigger, so it's two things, because the restaurant is called American Beauty, I think, and then on the side of it,
like a rose,
like a barnacle, there's window burgers. So literally, it's like you walk up to a window on the street, order, and then
sit by a wall
where they have these seats and poor flow because there are all these bugs flying around, and then you just pick up your food on the other side. So I guess that's where the window comes from.
To the window, to the wall.
Wendigo
burger.
I didn't enjoy eating.
It was also cold
there. The food though was very cheap. It's like In-N-Out.
Yes.
Like it's the price of In-N-Out, and I would say it's the quality of In-N-Out, which of course people love. So I think if you're at the Grove and you want a quick burger,
if you want a piece of a burger,
I will say though, that service was garbage. It took forever to get the food, and then they acted like, why would you want a straw? Why would you and then they called out, because we ordered alcohol and food. It took them forever to get the alcohol, and then they call you up, you get it, and then you wait for it took them too long to get that basic ass food ready.
And the child that was taking our order couldn't pronounce michelada, which I found. It's on you have a very limited menu, sir.
I also noticed that they had a hard time, and maybe it was him who was writing the names down, because he must have misspelled several people's names, because I could see when the names would be called on the speaker or whatever, that when the people would walk up, they'd be laughing and mocking the name. So maybe he's just not good with words and letters. I don't know.
Well,
which I'm not attacking him personally, but I definitely wouldn't sit there and eat again.
Yeah, if you want the quality of the $4.50 burger, you got the fried chicken sandwich, which was
which was like $7.
Yeah, It was good.
I would, you know what I would do? Maybe like if we're pressed for time before a movie at the Grove, I would just get the food to go and bring it into the theater.
Well, we usually go to World Market and buy like weird exotic snacks for the.
But yeah, I mean, that would be something I would do, is get 2 burgers and just put it in the bag and bring it in. And then you also tried this Vietnamese restaurant called Le Pho.
Le Pho?
Le Pho.
Yesterday.
It was really good.
I had a hankering for banh mi, but I had to do food prep as well. So I used to make banh mi all the time. Remember? I think you got sick of it. So I haven't brought it up in some time, but I really wanted one. And I was in West Hollywood for a function, and I found this place nearby and ordered it. And that lady was so sweet. I would go back just for how sweet that lady was. When I picked up the order, she's like, if you ever decide to come back here, please just call. She's like, it costs so much less, and Uber Eats was charging you for the chili paste and whatever. And she's like, when I saw that, I give you a bunch of free shit. I'm like, okay.
Well,
girl.
Also the pricing on Uber Eats
is less.
Well, no, it's more because you got 2 sandwiches and they were like $20 each, $22 each. But on the website, if you order directly, they're only $17.
Yes.
So not only do they charge a fee to the vendor, but they're also charging the consumer more, which we should know that. But yeah,
We should,
it's
but,
always better to order directly from the restaurant.
It is, but when you're doing several other things, and I was not paying attention to where I was seated, so.
But don't let that stop people from sending me Uber Eats gift cards. Anyway,
It was good, and part of the banh mi,
I also accept DoorDash gift cards.
Part of the problem with banh mi is some people don't know the right bread to use. Like the bread has a lot to do with it.
You got a steak banh mi and a chicken one, and the quality of the meat for both was really good, and the ingredients were very fresh, and the bread, because I don't like crunchy French bread. This was very soft, but not soggy. Like they didn't put too much liquid. It was like the perfect style of sandwich for me. I would definitely
go back there,
get from there again. Yeah,
I would too.
Moving on, I just wanted to complain again about the public charging stations for your car, which I stopped trying to use them. Because the one that's very close to our house, which is free.
Not apathy, not you.
I know. Well, and then, we do have a garage, and I can just plug my car in the garage. So then I could just do that. But, the superchargers are very fast. But I stopped trying to go because there's always a line and people are crazy.
I don't understand. You are such an early bird. You just need to go then. You go get coffee like every morning. Just do it then.
Well, during the week, that's not possible because
sure during the week, but you get up.
Yeah. So like yesterday I did. I get up at like 6 o'clock and I just put on some clothes and go to the charging station, charge for 20 minutes, which is like a full charge. And then I'll go get my coffee. So that's my new routine. Is because I don't drive that much, so I can charge my car once a week, no problem.
Well, we should be thankful that some dumb yoo-hoo hasn't ripped out the copper and made that charging station unavailable.
I know I couldn't use it for months because people kept vandalizing them. But anyway, I wanted to complain because now that I do go once a week, even at the ass crack of dawn on a Saturday, you still get these weirdos who like police the charging station. There's always because there's always a line, right? You always have to wait at least one car. And there's always some asshole who's like the fourth car waiting, who gets out and starts walking around and looking at everyone's screen and telling them like, when you're going to be done. It's just.
That's a personality. Yeah.
I feel like people are.
Well,
you're waiting to get shot at.
To me, that says that they're. There's probably been a lot of there probably is a lot of wasted time where people aren't paying attention when their turn is next, and etc. So I can understand that, but
here's the thing. The only reason I got an electric car is because I knew that I have a garage. Like we have a garage and we have plugs in it. So at the bare minimum, I could just plug my car in. But, when I bought this car, part of the salesperson's pitch was you get 2 years of free charging. So then I thought, oh, that's great. But in practicality, it's not super convenient to wait for the free charging. Now there in LA, there are a million charging stations. They're just not all free. So there is a scenario where I would never have to wait to charge my car, but then I'd have to pay. So, I am frugal, but yeah, I just think it's so weird. Like, why would you get an electric car to then know that you're only going to be reliant on this free charger that's never available?
Why would you get a dog if you live in a studio apartment in oh, wait, a lot of people make that choice.
Well, I think it's like, I don't know. I think people need to realize like you constantly running around like angry with this like high blood pressure. I just think like you're causing yourself an earlier death. All that stress, all that, people just look sour and angry over what? Like
traffic.
Listen, I listen to my spa music when I drive and I try to do my breathing practices. It's like you need to find ways to like calm down. Don't do things that will elevate your stress.
Exactly.
Like, why are you doing this?
Again, as you age, you're supposed to gain that wisdom. Read little David Lynch's book about meditation. It changed his life. I think that's get yourself into a healthy headspace.
I do have something in the start of this man section because in our Sinners review, I commented, I can't tell the brothers apart. And then we got comments like, not me saying I can't tell two black men apart. That's not what I was saying. I know that they're twins and there are two of them. I had a hard time remembering their names. Like I didn't know which one was Stack and which one was the other one.
Smoke and Stack.
Smoke and Stack. I couldn't tell which one was Smoke and which one was Stack. But they obviously have two different temperaments and
hats,
but
and women.
And women. So I could tell them apart from those things. But if you asked me the name, I couldn't say which one was Smoke and which one was Stack. So that was what I said. But the way it came out was like, because there were several comments I deleted saying like, oh, all black people look the same to me. And it's like, no, that's not what I was saying. But I wasn't clear either.
Well, then, but I think that there was a valid. You have to work harder to tell who's who because they're twins. That's always the case with identical twins. And
I just didn't know which name to assign the two brothers, but I could tell which one was which by their other attributes. Just the name wasn't clear to me. Like, that's all.
Which I also compared that I had the same problems with De Niro in the Alto Knights, even though there's some difference, but it's the same actor. So you have to, sometimes you have to do, there's a little extra volleying going on in your brain.
Moving on, films released we didn't cover. Cheech and Chong's last movie.
This is a documentary about Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong, who, if you don't know who they are, you got some catching up to do. With I don't even know how many movies they had together, but some of them are quite funny. But David Bushell, who previously, he's a producer, but he directed a Jim Carrey doc, I think, previously, released this over the weekend. We had a lot of coverage this week, by the way.
And then A Normal Family.
Okay, I might still watch this week because I think I have a screening link coming, but it's a Korean adaptation of a story we've seen many times over, but at the place I was at yesterday, this was recommended to me. But it's another adaptation of this novel, The Dinner, which there are many versions. There's an Italian version, a Dutch version, Oren Moverman directed an English language version. And I think there might be something. Anyway, this is a Korean version of these parents who learn that their kid killed somebody, and how are they dealing with it. But I've seen at least two previous versions, so yeah, let's see what the Korean version looks like. It's directed by Jin Ho, who is a director I'm mostly unfamiliar with, although I did watch a Dangerous Liaisons adaptation they did, back in like 2012.
Projects of interest, parallel tales.
Well, this is the big one. I, of course, woke up to a lot of messages. Was Thursday morning. Asghar Farhadi, the Iranian director, is making his second French language title, Parallel Tales, which is, if you're familiar with his filmography, is a title that very much sounds like we probably know what to expect from Mr. Farhadi. But he has a stacked French cast that includes Isabelle Huppert, Virginia Fira, Vincent Cassel, Vincent Cassel, and Catherine Deneuve, who, of course, has been with Isabelle in at least two features previously, but I like seeing both of them on screen together. Yeah, that's going to be probably Cannes 2026, because it shoots this autumn.
Diary of a Chambermaid.
This is another film that's been made umpteen times. I think, is the original Jean Renoir with Paulette Goddard. I want to say that is right, but that's the one I'm fuzziest on. But I've seen all of the versions previously. My favorite is Louis Buñuel's version with Jean Moreau, and then Benoit Jacquot directed a version with Léa Seydoux in 2015. So apparently Radu Jude, a fantastic Romanian director. He won Berlin in 2020 for a film that's exquisite. Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn. Anyway, he's directing another version of this, which maybe will finally get me to read, because I've had the book on a shelf for years by Octave Mirbeau, and I've been wanting to read it. So I guess this is my opportunity to finally crack that.
Her Private Hell.
Nicholas Winding Refn he did some series that I started and never finished. Was that on Netflix? Anyway, this is his first feature since 2016's The Neon Demon, which is a film that I wanted to like a lot more than I did. But he's finally directing a new film, and Charles Melton, who was the breakout role from May December, who we also just had a brief role in
Warfare.
Sophie Thatcher is also going to be in it. So a cast of young notables, but hopefully he has something to say again.
Lastly, Remain.
Okay, this is of interest, but this sounds like a mess. It's the new M. Night Shyamalan project.
Okay.
So apparently, and Jake Gyllenhaal is in it, and it is being made concurrent with a book that Shyamalan is assisting Nicholas Sparks to write. So it's like a weepy romantic thing. So the book is supposed to the book's going to be published in October, so I'm assuming the film's supposed to come out in conjunction. I don't know.
I kind of like the idea of, I don't know that I care about this movie, but I like the idea of there being a film with a companion book that sort of complement each other. They're not like an interpretation of
Exactly
one another.
the same.
Like,
Yeah,
it'd be fun if maybe like the book sort of is like a prequel to the movie or vice versa. I'm sure that exists, but
it's interesting. Also, I don't like Nicholas Sparks, and it's my understanding that he's a racist. So I don't know why. Anyway,
this past week on our Patreon, we reviewed The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Is that Heath Ledger's last movie?
yes.
And we also reviewed Lake Mungo.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are interested, they can give us money to listen to those. Unfortunately, there are some entries in the obituaries section.
Entries. Okay, I only had
Okay, Lar-Park Lincoln died.
Yes.
She is an actor.
Mm-hmm. She was a final girl from the Friday the 13th franchise. But I think she was only like 63.
But she's known for several roles in horror films and then also being on the show Knots Landing.
That's right, Knots Landing. She was in many episodes of that.
Yeah, but she was only 63. Okay, next. Bianca Castro, also known as Jiggly Caliente.
I didn't see that at all.
So I knew about this. Well, earlier this week, it was weird because I think
that just happened.
Yeah, but I think I was on the way to my mom's house maybe when the Drag Queen Monet Exchange has like a YouTube talk show called Monet Talks, and I was listening to the episode with Jiggly Caliente on it. And then immediately after I finished, I looked on my phone and saw that her family had posted a thing saying that Jiggly had an infection on her leg.
Mm-hmm.
And her right leg had to be amputated.
Oh my God.
So that was a couple days ago. And then early this morning, they put out another statement saying that she had died. She was only 43,
44.
44? Yeah. I mean, of course, fans of Drag Race know Jiggly. Wow. She was on the 4th season. Then she was on All Stars. Then she was a judge on Drag Race Philippines. She was also featured on the show Pose.
Yeah.
Jiggly was trans, so her name post transition was Bianca Castro. But yeah, I always liked Jiggly, but this is sad.
Wow, this is there have been a bunch of these Rue girls dying because we were just rewatching. You're just rewatching All Stars, All Winners with the Viv.
Yeah. And there were a lot of jokes about ketamine, which is ultimately what took her life. So that was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really thought Jiggly was fun and sweet.
She was, and she seemed like she had gotten to a point in life where she loved herself.
Well, that's good then.
I mean, like at her seeing her transition and she seemed, watching her on Drag Race Philippines, she seemed happy.
Next, an actor named Sophie Nyweide. She was known for roles in Bella, Margot at the Wedding, and Mammoth. But I guess her death is under investigation. So she was quite young. She was only 24.
Well, so she's a child in Margot at the Wedding.
I'm not familiar with those movies.
Margot at the Wedding is my favorite Noah Baumbach.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Lastly, of course, Pope Francis died.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't, it's interesting because my entire family is Catholic and my mom grew up Catholic, but when she married my father,
Catholic with some shades of, what do you call it, Santeria? What is there are some beliefs that have been uttered that are certainly not Catholic that I've heard.
But yeah, she growing up for me, my family was Christian, not Catholic, but all of my extended family is Catholic, and that's my only connection to Catholicism besides, I guess, the movie Conclave. I don't know. I don't know. I really have no connection to it, but of course we all know how significant the role of the Pope is. And,
y'all know the Pope.
And Pope Francis
was progressive.
He was the most progressive Pope with his inclusive ideas regarding the LGBTQ community. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have a connection.
When people start realizing that the churches, like unions, need somebody to put money into them for them to keep going.
But yeah, I mean, the role of the Pope is quite significant. And but yeah, I really don't have any thoughts about the Pope.
No,
it's an odd thing because it's growing up. I understand, people, the sort of significance of this role and people following whatever this person says. But then when this Pope comes along and has some sort of more progressive views, it's like people don't.
They don't want to listen to that.
So it's just like, what is the point?
People only want to listen and they only want to adhere to the negative, hateful things.
All right. The secret film this week was your choice.
Yes, it was.
And you chose the 1999 American film Fight Club, directed by a David Fincher and starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton.
I believe it's Fincher's fourth film, and this is after Alien 3, 7, and The Game. So it's his second film with Mr. Pitt.
What is it about? An insomniac office worker and a devil-may-care soap maker form an underground fight club that evolves into much more. Why did you choose this movie?
I've been wanting to rewatch it for years because I saw it probably circa 2000 when my family rented it on VHS, and I've just been meaning to rewatch it. And I've had the book, so I read the book about a week ago. It's the second book I've read by Palahniuk. You've actually read a Palahniuk novel.
What was that?
Invisible Monsters.
I did?
With the trans protagonist, Randy Alexander, and the girl with her face shot off.
I read that book?
You did. You liked it.
Wait.
You did.
Wait.
You read it on a cruise, I believe.
What?
Yes, you read Invisible Monsters.
What's the book about some kind of bug and they're on an island? You gave me that book when we lived in Oak Grove.
The Wasp Factory?
The Wasp Factory.
Yeah, you did read that. And
okay, that's not the Wasp Factory.
Well, yeah, because for a hot minute, like damn near, over a decade ago, we would read, like I think we both read Our Eyes Were Watching God at the same time. Yeah, that's from back then. No, Invisible Monsters you read.
I stopped reading. I don't need to.
Okay. Anyway,
poison my mind.
I'd always hoped somebody had made
all this propaganda, but anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just illiterate. Anyway, wait. So what's the book you said I read?
Invisible Monsters.
Let me look this up.
Anyway,
continue.
So Fight Club, which I guess I was ignorant of the fact that was Palahniuk's debut novel, 1996, because I just, I was a teenager when Fight Club came out, and all of a sudden, he had all kinds of books. But yes, so I read the book, which I thought was very moving and depressing, and a time capsule, a Gen X time capsule, if you will. And so that's why it was the perfect week to rewatch the 1999 David Fincher film, which, of course, as we all know, was not a major hit, but became a huge cult classic and kind of a cornerstone of 1990s cinema. This is right before the millennium. And notably, also, I would have been ignorant of this at the time, this was Fincher working with 20th Century Fox again, which, of course, was the studio that royally screwed him over on his debut, Alien 3, which he refuses to acknowledge or talk about really to this day.
Obviously, there are going to be spoilers, and there's a big kind of obvious spoiler in this movie, but I don't think I had ever watched this movie. I knew that people were really into it. Like, people seem to make this like their religion.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I knew the twist. Because as soon as the movie started, you asked me, and I said, I don't think I've seen this movie, but I know what the twist is. So I think maybe just through osmosis of it being like sort of a cult classic. I knew that, but watching it, as we were watching it, I think I remember. So I have a thing about people getting hit in the head. Like that's like the one thing that really I have a hard time watching. And so I think I can recall considering getting this movie on Netflix when they would mail the disc to my house. And I opted not to because I didn't want to. I think maybe I saw a clip of someone getting punched.
And there, of course, is a lot of that, but I wouldn't say it's so excessive.
No, it was very doable. Like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as violent as I had imagined. So it was actually quite easy for me to get through.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think I had ever watched this movie. But just to go through the plot quickly, there are so many layers and so much to talk about in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to know how it differs from the book. But the basic story is that Ed Norton plays this man who's like a corporate drone. I think he works for like an auto company assessing their like safety something. But he has this like boring corporate job that he seems to find quite mundane. And it's him just trying to be like cookie cutter corporate guy. And he seems really concerned about the kind of furniture that's in his home and how he dresses, blah, blah, blah. When one day he has a chance encounter with a man named Tyler Durden,
Mm-hmm.
played by Brad Pitt. They meet on an airplane. Ed Norton has to travel a lot for work. So he meets Brad Pitt on an airplane. And Brad Pitt's supposed to be the opposite of him. Like he's kind of flashy and
kind of aspirational,
irreverent. And he's supposed to be like very good looking. I think they're both kind of equivalent, but I can appreciate that at that time Brad Pitt was like the hottest man alive or something.
Well, he also looks very 1999.
And he's very like ripped physically. And anyway, Ed Norton finds him appealing, like, intriguing in a way. But anyway, Ed Norton makes his way home to his condo in a high-rise building when we see that his condo has been destroyed. Like that entire floor has been like blown out.
Mm-hmm. And all his belongings are smoking on the street below.
So he calls, I guess, someone he knows because he doesn't have many friends, and he calls Tyler Durden. So they go out drinking all night. And at the end of the night, Tyler says, well, are you going to ask me? Ask me what? Or ask you what? Well, don't you want to stay with me? Oh, I couldn't do that. Come on, man. That's why you called me. Like, you want to stay at my place. All you have to do is ask. Okay, can I stay with you? Sure, come on. So as they're headed back to his place, they stop in the parking lot of this bar and start fighting.
Well, that's the iconic line where Brad Pitt says, I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
But it's very clear that it's not like out of anger.
No.
And then we see that they're both sort of getting some sort of release from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that quickly evolves into a club. There is a lot more that's happening, but just to get through this, they start this club and it starts to grow. And we see that basically Tyler Durden, Brad Pitt's character, is forming like an army kind of,
mm-hmm.
or it has evolved into an army of people. And they are working on something called Project Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of Project Mayhem is to destroy like financial institutions,
to wipe the debt, to make the debt return to zero,
so that people can kind of like be on even playing ground, I guess.
Would it were, you could make that happen, right?
But the twist is kind of at like the 3/4 point, Ed Norton realizes that Tyler Durden is in his head.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that he has some sort of like dissociative disorder. He's
Mm-hmm.
created this character to help him cope with the life that he's so unsatisfied with. So once Ed Norton realizes, oh my God, I created this monster and then I've created this like destructive chaos, he tries to stop it because he realizes that he's had all these people help him basically pull some Timothy McVeigh shit
Mm-hmm.
and have these vans filled with explosives and all these high rises. So at the very end, Ed Norton, like we have minutes left until these bombs are supposed to go off. Ed Norton realizes the only way to get rid of Tyler Durden is to kill himself. So Ed Norton shoots himself in the head, but he misses. Like he doesn't shoot properly. So all he does is basically shoot a hole through his cheek. But that does cause Tyler Durden to vanish. But it's too late because we see all these buildings crumble. The end.
And
Okay.
and a flash of a penis.
But there's so much more happening.
Because it's about the realm of the subconscious.
Where to start? So, first of all, I can see how people really connect with this. I could really see people who feel like they're trapped in a box.
Yeah.
Really, really connect with this story. I thought that this was very effective. I don't really connect with these feelings per se.
I felt like I felt more connected reading the novel than rewatching the film. To me, there's maybe just an element of something missing in the film for me. But as I was reading the book, you know, from 2025 perspective, I kept thinking of the substance, and also what does a gay fight club look like? Because if this is all about release, then this anti-corporate, anti-establishment world that has completely numbed us, how straight heterosexual men have to find that is through this avenue that we're seeing, and how other groups would have to do it would be different. So I think gay men do this. They have their own fight clubs, except they're just sex clubs. Like anything where you are just one of a interconnected piece of flesh trying to feel something that's beyond yourself.
I'm just going to start going through my notes. So, and try to get through as many things as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So Ed Norton's character doesn't really have a name, although, because I wrote down at one point, who the hell is Jack? Because Ed Norton's the narrator of his story. Yes. And every now and then he'll be like, well, Jack did this and Jack said that. And it's like, who the hell is Jack? I think that Jack is sort of him referring to himself.
Yeah.
Like an aspect of himself. But so thinking about like, how do we get to this point? How did this man sort of get to this point where he creates this character? I think, he's clearly has some mental health issues, but throughout the story, we can see that like he clearly has like there's something missing in his life, like a void, because we hear him talk about how he didn't have a dad, like how his dad left him. We also, I guess, can presume, if I'm correct, that whatever Tyler Durden is saying probably also applies to Ed Norton, right? So like their feelings about not having a dad. And and at one point, Tyler Durden says, like, if I could fight anyone, I'd fight my dad.
And dads are like a God figure. And what does it mean when God abandons you?
Right. So then you have this man who feels like he didn't have a dad. Then I thought this was pretty interesting, is they talk about how they're the middle children of history. There's no Great War, no Great Depression. So it's like they have nothing.
Well, it's odd, and I think this is why it's specifically very Gen X related, is yes, you have everything, but essentially nothing, because it's all about commercialism, and that is supposed to stand in for what you have.
But I found that component of it very interesting, because people seem to always want to find a purpose. And it's like, well, okay, so if there were a war to fight in, or if people find purpose in a lot of ways, like their children, their job, their
survival.
In some ways, I feel like it's just you trying to attach yourself to something, and it could be anything. Like, why does it have to be this arduous, traumatic thing?
Right.
And I think that's maybe the secret of life, is like finding something that, like, it's okay to find purpose in things that are what others might call frivolous, or which is, I think, why I'm a defender of people enjoying like what someone like you might say is basic or whatever. Is like, well, I think it's kind of a gift to find joy in things that are more.
It's okay to find joy.
Easy.
Of course, it's okay to find joy in them, but they can't just be that either.
Well, I don't know. Who's to say? Like, I mean, so then
we're not on someone like say birds that really need to have something to scratch their claws and beaks on. Really,
Sure, but I mean, what is the goal? To be happy, or to be some like
shouldn't we
crazy shithouse rat who's like high strung?
Isn't the goal enlightenment? Self-actualization, Maslow's hierarchy of
I don't know
needs.
if you told me that, if I lived to be 75 and I spent the majority of that fighting to find meaning and always suffering because I feel like there's not enough, and versus me just being like, everything's like, I'm cool.
Copacetic.
Yeah, I mean, I would choose the latter. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to just spend my life trying to understand what I can't possibly understand.
I don't think it's noble simply to suffer.
No,
but
and that's what I'm saying. And I don't think you think that, but I'm just saying that I think there's some comfort in. I'm a defender of that because I feel like there's so much pretense in like judging people for not pushing harder to be what? Frustrated, unfulfilled. I mean, oftentimes I think searching for more leaves you with that when those answers don't exist. That's why I'm not so hard on religion, because I think there are very open-minded, reasonable people who just have settled on like this thing, whether or not I actually believe in it provides me some comfort because life is hard, shit is crazy, people are terrible. If I can
yes,
find a morsel of something that gives me some kind of comfort.
I think that we need to be focused on, we need to be like the god Janus. I think we individually need to be looking forward and behind. Yes, your comfort is important, but is your comfort coming at the cost of no one else having any? Or like, again, what's coming, what's behind us, where are we situated? We have to acknowledge and be involved with things that don't just apply to us. We are collective. We are connected to
Sure.
to not just other humans, the environment. Like it all has to work for all of us, or it's not going to work at all. Eventually, is what's going to happen. But
Sure.
Yes. So you should find your comfort, but you shouldn't only rest in your comfort.
So Edward Norton's character, he has daddy issues. He feels like he doesn't have purpose. I think he also is struggling with capitalism, materialism, right? Like, and then because we get this, I thought it was cute seeing him try to pick out his IKEA furniture and
his
like
yin and yang table,
right? And then I think there's a component of like masculinity that at this point I would sort of reference that we watched the movie The Surfer.
Yeah, it wasn't that fortuitous.
Yeah, that new Nicolas Cage movie. I think our review for that comes out like in a few days. But and I didn't know about Fight Club when we reviewed.
Yeah, because it was secret. I didn't want to tell you yet.
But I think that this movie is definitely more along the lines of what I wanted The Surfer to be, like a greater examination of, in The Surfer, it's more, I think, about what it means to be a man. And I don't think that film does it as well as I wish it would have. But in this one, I do think the film is a very nice exploration of what it is to be a human, maybe. But there are aspects of masculinity. I think there is sort of a love interest played by Helena Bonham Carter, Marla
Singer,
which we'll get to. And then also Meatloaf plays a character, I think his name is Bob.
Oh, Bob.
And
I feel so bad for Bob.
Bob has what they call bitch tits. I guess he was like a bodybuilder who took steroids. And I think a side effect of that is that
and he had testicular cancer.
And I think the hormones and all that caused him to develop what looked like
large pendulous breasts.
Like, yes, huge breasts.
One of the major things that I remember from watching this as a kid was Meatloaf's breasts and the liposuction fat.
But so that leads me to, okay, so then we know that his character seems to maybe be dealing with that. Then he seems to be pretty apathetic towards other people. We hear Ed Norton talk about like there's nothing worse than having basically like dealing with strangers, which to me.
Well, he recognizes there's a need, and this is how he meets Marla, is he is attending as a tourist, as he calls it, all of these self-help groups.
Well, let's get to that in a second.
Okay.
But talking about all the things that make Ed Norton's character like the perfect storm for what happens next is all the things I mentioned. Also, he's suffering from insomnia. So that just seems like when you put all that together, this person's going to pop.
Yes.
But then, like you just said, he starts attending support groups.
Based on like a joke that his doctor makes, like, you aren't suffering. You on Fridays, you go down to that testicular cancer group. That's suffering.
Well, and I think that's a really important scene because he goes to the doctor wanting just medication to help him sleep. And I felt like that was kind of powerful because I think a lot of people, like, there's no easy solve. Like,
No, and this tired doctor that's like, look, you need to find how to do that naturally.
Well, he says like you need to eat better, you need to exercise. Like there are things that you could do before you just come here talking about give me something to knock me out. And then when he talks about suffering, it's like you need to go listen to people who are really dealing with shit, which, you know, I know is not a popular opinion, but sometimes when like talking to younger people talk about their issues, it's like I think that you need to take a step back.
That's all young people everywhere, right? That's how, because
I'm sure I was like that when I was 20 something.
Well, because it's your own, you're the center of your universe, and it's slowly learning that like, no, your wellness might have to be connected to somebody else's. Like,
but he starts attending. So he attends the first group is a support group for men who are living with or survived testicular cancer. And but I thought all the support groups that he goes to, they were kind of funny because he's going to ones about like people who had like blood parasites, brain parasites. The one that was the most funny to me is that he goes to a bi-monthly sickle cell circle. And so as people probably should know, sickle cell affects African Americans.
Well, just like
or people of African descent. So
just like Marla's going to testicular cancer.
Right. So you see Ed Norton in this support group and it's all black people and him. But then one day he's sitting in a group. Well, it's actually his testicular cancer group when all of a sudden Marla pops in. And so of course.
And he's irate.
He's mad. And he tells her basically like, I cannot enjoy this knowing that there's someone here who's faking it. And it's like, fool, you're faking it. And also Marla tells his ass, I probably belong more in that testicular cancer support group than you do because I don't have testicles.
And Marla is a mess. You know, you see her, and this is in the book too, where she goes into laundromats and steals jeans and then goes and sells them at consignment shops.
Okay, this is a good point to go over because I would like to know how the three main characters, how did you picture them in the book? So first off, because Tyler Durden, he's a bit of a, what's the word? Like a contradiction, because at one point he's talking about like, we can't all be the people like these Hollywood stars. And it's like, but as portrayed by Brad Pitt is ironic.
Brad Pitt, yes, is a Hollywood product.
Well, even the way he dresses and the, like he is kind of like the thing that everyone wants to be. And he's railing against that. But first, when you read the book, how did you picture Tyler Durden?
More rugged. I mean, it's impossible not to kind of see Brad Pitt's face, but in the book, Tyler Durden definitely feels to me a lot more rugged and more human.
So based on reading the book, who would you have cast to play Tyler Durden?
Oh God.
Like what kind of actor would you have cast?
In 1999?
Just anybody you can think of.
Like Ethan Hawke.
Oh, wow.
I think he'd make a good Tyler Durden.
Okay. And then how did the main character read to you? The narrator.
Norton. Well, I think I just was picturing Edward Norton because I think Edward Norton's a handsome man, but he's also, there's something a little standard in his looks. Like you could inject him in a lot of things in a lot of ways. But so I think Norton is fine.
And then how did you read Marla?
Marla, and rewatching it, I don't know that I love Helena Bonham Carter in this. I think the character.
She's my least favorite part of the movie.
The character itself is kind of funny, but knowing that Courtney Love was kind of up for it, but she had made Brad Pitt mad because she wanted to play Kurt Cobain, and I think he had a say over his co-stars. I think I would have liked to see Courtney Love in this, because there's something, again, quintessentially Gen X about this film and this novel, and Courtney Love fits and nestles perfectly right there in my mind. I also read that Janine Garofalo, David Fincher had wanted her, but Norton didn't want her. I
really like Janine Garofalo's comedy.
I do too. And
Side note,
I think she would have added a bitter cynicism to this. Helena she looks like a chick that was just hatched, and I don't know. I've met women like her. She just seems a mess.
Well, I think my issue with her character, which I guess we can start talking about, is because then I was reading that people sort of have an interpretation of the story that maybe there are some issues with gender identity and sexuality that are being brought up. And
in that I think Palahniuk, I think he gets into that a little more with Invisible Monsters. But yeah, I think you can, they're avenues of interpretation in here. Yeah.
But I think because of how it's portrayed how Marla's portrayed in this film, there's not a lot of it almost makes me feel like his impression of women are that they're like a very negative, right? Because Marla represents Ed Norton, like that character.
She's a facet of Norton as well,
right?
Because she's doing that's why he's so upset when she shows up at these groups. She's a mirror for him,
right?
That's causing him an introspection he wants to run away from.
So yeah, so then it's like I'm having a hard time understanding like what is his connection to a relationship with a woman, because this raggedy heifer, like I don't know.
And
it's very confusing.
Is Marla real?
Oh.
Because
I didn't even think about that.
Because she's satisfying him sexually, and he's also when Tyler Durden is having sex with Marla, Norton's in the kitchen, annoyed at it.
Yes.
And I think that he can't fantasize about having sex with Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden, but he can fantasize about having sex with it. It's very.
I didn't even. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are lots of interesting things going on here that are troubling, when you have to parse through them about yourself.
Next, I was going to talk about the evolution of Edward Norton's character, because at first we see him as being this passive man.
Mm-hmm.
And then once Fight Club starts and he's living with Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden, then he becomes a little more arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And then even apathetic, like when we do see him pop into
work.
Yeah. But then his empathy starts to increase, his affection for Marla starts to increase.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say ultimately, his suicide attempt to rid himself of Tyler Durden is like selfless.
Yes.
So he goes through the range.
And I would say the death of Meatloaf's character, Bob, also is kind of a catalyst in there.
Right.
Because then that's where it seems like this isn't a game anymore. The Project Mayhem, it's like this is dangerous and people are going to get hurt.
Well, then the evolution of the Fight Club, because at first they have rules to try to make it like fair for everyone, right? Because Tyler Durden's saying only two people can fight.
Mm-hmm. It goes on as long as it wants, and you have to stop.
You have to stop if the person says stop,
Mm-hmm.
and and then it turns into he's dehumanizing them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's that whole scene, like the application process, where like when Bob Meatloaf's character applies to be part of Fight Club, and they're like, "You're too old and too fat," and then Tyler Durden's telling Ed Norton, "Oh, all the applicants have to like sleep outside for 3 days with no food before we."
Well, I think so the initial Fight Club, the joy that these men are experiencing is that whatever they are in the real world, that's all checked at the door. Right. So all of their shortcomings, and then there's a kind of a power in that. But then when that becomes the only way for you to be, then it becomes dehumanizing. You can't just leave all of that stuff checked at the door forever. And if that's baggage weighing you down, you have to deal with that a different way. This pure escapist thing is a quick fix. The Fight Club is a quick fix.
Well, and then we see that as they're recruiting more people, which was not originally the intention.
And all these people need something to do.
Then they start, with all these like assignments that Tyler Durden's giving them. Now they're like dehumanizing others because they're like they're destroying coffee shops.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's anti-corporation
establishment.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to like this combination of things that led to this person having this break, I think what Marla seems like she's like the catalyst for what caused like the events of the movie, because he seemed to have found a fix.
He did.
What I related to is like, I think there could be a point where like you start to find a rhythm for yourself that feels fine. And then there's like this person or event that happens that sort of unsettles everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so while going to these support groups you don't really belong in seems somewhat problematic, it was also
a quick fix.
It was a quick fix and also a harmless way for this person to sort of start to feel something.
Right.
And then this person comes along and, like you said, mirrors the fact that you're faking it. you're just as bad as she is, then that's what sort of derailed him. I didn't mention that the explosion that destroyed Ed Norton's condo, he orchestrated that.
Yes.
So he destroyed his own place. Yeah. So he clearly was looking for a way out.
Yeah. Thinking of like the film, like the film we reviewed this week, April, it's like this person that's kind of getting dislodged from the mud. Like that was his way that he needed to, because what's the famous line from this movie about, you know, there's several, but the one that's having, you have to just, once you have nothing, God, I don't have them in front of me, but something about like the things that you own you, and then also you can only be something.
Oh, you're referencing what he said?
Yes. Like,
I wrote it down. He wrote, only after we've lost everything are we free to do anything.
Yes, that exactly.
I also thought that I got some sort of messaging for this idea of suicide, because that's how I interpreted the end. Like when Ed shoots himself, it's sort of a way to get rid of this craziness in his head. But then I also took it as like before I would, because you would think, how do I say this? Because you would think someone who was that unhappy, like with all the things that led to this convergence that created Tyler Durden, like I'm unhappy with my career, I feel trapped, lonely. He could have just killed himself, but instead he went to an extreme length in his mind to find purpose and meaning. So in a way, in some really dark, twisted way, his story almost feels like encouraging. Like, I mean, I don't recommend people start
because
engaging in like domestic terrorism, but it's like,
well, he goes to such an extreme that he kind of snaps out of it. He's able to backtrack in his mind that he is like he's able to bounce back a little bit and realize like this shit is out of control.
I also find it in the book, I'm assuming there's no sort of mention or reference to maybe him needing to talk to someone, like a therapist.
I don't recall him speaking to a therapist. No.
I found that interesting, that through all this, you know, this person who seems to have this sort of low grade unhappiness that was more significant than maybe he imagined, that it never
culminated in speaking with someone,
or even the thought of like, maybe I should speak to someone. Like, he doesn't talk to anyone except himself, Tyler Durden.
Right. Or these self-help groups where, you know, what else he liked that I thought was profound that he likes it is like when people think you're dying, they actually listen to you.
Yeah. Okay. I need to keep getting through my notes. So I think it's funny. When we meet Tyler Durden on the airplane, and then we learn what he, after the Fight Club starts, we learn that what he's doing for work is he works in like a movie theater as a projectionist, and he likes to splice the film with like these single frames of like genitals. So like these families who go in to watch a family friendly movie, they get these subliminal messages of, you know, nudity. And then, but then before we meet Tyler Durden, we get a couple of flashes.
Yes.
That are him. So that would be a clue that this man's probably not real, because he's just popping up in like our subconscious. We also learned that Tyler Durden works like doing like banquet, like cater waiter type stuff.
Yes.
And that he likes to do shit like pee in the food.
Well,
and then we learn later that he uses that to sue and get money, which I think is interesting, because the overall message of like not wanting to be a drone, like fighting for individualism and purpose, but then ultimately being a part of this fight club and involving yourself in Project Mayhem, you kind of are a drone and like fighting against capitalism. But then we see that Ed Norton's character at one point basically blackmails his boss, so that, which I wrote down, was this the beginning of telework? Because that's basically what he does, is he gets he sort of blackmails his boss to let him work from home, and then he says, now we have corporate sponsorship so we can continue the Fight Club. So it's like, well, in the beginning of the film you were complaining about that, and now you're,
I think the message also is like what to dismantle capitalism, scheming and plundering it is not going to be the way to dismantle it, because what happens is you dismantle yourself. But I think the soap also feeds into that too, because there's the line about we're stealing fat rendered from fat humans at expensive clinics and then selling it back to
we're selling rich women their own fat asses to them.
Yes.
Because Tyler Durden's saying that the best, because soap is made from fat, and the best fat is human fat because of the salt content or something.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to a liposuction clinic to steal the fat that's been sucked out of humans.
That scene where they get caught on the barbed wire and all that fat drips out on him, is that I remember very clearly.
I thought a really funny moment is, we're deep into Ed's, I guess, like, psychosis, and he's at work and he's progressively getting more sort of deranged at work. Like, he's not caring anymore. He's just showing up bloody. And at one point his boss comes in with like a copy. Is it a copy of like Project Mayhem?
The Fight Club rules.
Oh, the Fight Club rules. Ed Norton's boss walks into his office and he's like, "Hey, is this yours? This, like, don't, the first rule of Fight Club, blah, blah, blah." And then the narrator is saying, like, "What am I going to do?" And then all of a sudden he gets up and basically threatens his boss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that movie we watched with Brooke Shields and the guy from
Richard Thomas? Doesn't it Stalking Laura?
Yeah, about
was one of the titles,
and it's the true story of this mass shooting at work. It made me think of that. But he basically says, like, "I will come back and shoot everyone if you don't leave me alone."
Well, it's basically 1999, right? And how much the world has changed since this came out. Like, that shit, right away, you would be escorted out. There's but back in the 90s, we kind of let people. We thought that they were just blowing off steam, talking this crazy shit.
But I have to clarify. I said funny because that's not funny. What was funny is how Ed snatches that copy from his boss. He just snatches that paper. Okay. Jared Leto's blonde hair and eyebrows were very upsetting to me in this movie.
Yeah. Well, in the book, he's supposed to be this beautiful young thing, like this beautiful young man that Palahniuk describes. That.
Explain that, because I don't understand Jared Leto's character in the movie as much. But what is he supposed to represent in the book?
He's just this thing that the Ed Norton character feels that they can't have, and he wants to destroy it. And there's a line that references in the movie.
Ed Norton. So the narrator wants Jared Leto
to destroy him, like,
because he's jealous of him.
It's not jealous. It just seems like it's fashioned in a way that this person's too beautiful to be walking around this way, almost.
Speaking of that,
and he's described as, in the book, if I recall correctly, Palahniuk keeps writing that this character is sometimes like a woman.
Oh, see, I kept thinking Jared Leto's character in this movie, I think, is a missed opportunity, because I just didn't understand his purpose. But hearing you talk about it in the book, I wonder why they included him, to have him seem kind of like frivolous. Because honestly, if it weren't someone I recognized, I wouldn't have even, like, his character wouldn't have registered. I just immediately saw that awful hair and eyebrows, and I, knowing it's Jared Leto, I had my eye on him. I will say though, at the end, because Jared Leto and Ed Norton get into a fight and Ed Norton whoops his ass, and then when we see Jared Leto again with all his injuries, I thought he looked like a sleepwalker.
Oh yeah, he looked misshapen.
He looked crazy.
Well, he's been rearranged. But the other thing about Jared Leto, knowing in retrospect, knowing how he behaves and his pretentious ass, I bet he decided he wanted to be blonde like this as a character tick, because Requiem was right after this, and he's got that black dark hair. So I bet he's like, I got to change it up. I got a method. We've
been talking for so long, I forgot. Did I mention Jack?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. The Jeff Bezos' fiance is in this movie. What is her name? Lauren Sanchez?
Yeah. God.
And then I was looking through her IMDb. She's been in a lot of movies, and most of the time she plays like a news reporter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. I think at the point where they get into the car accident, that's when I started getting tired of the movie. Because then I started thinking, okay, we get it. Like, I don't know. I really do like this movie, and there's so much to talk about, obviously, that I think overall I probably will say it's excellent. But there's something about it that, and I don't know, I didn't read the book, but I don't know, it kind of loses steam at a point for me.
It does. And again, I do also quite like this film. It certainly leaves a lasting impression, but there's a sense of humanity that's in Palahniuk's writing that I felt very moved, like almost to the point of tears a couple reading the book, like about where we were culturally at this point and kind of where we are now. Like it just seems like we can see how things are going and progressing without stopping them. But there's a little bit of that lacking, and I don't know if it's because, again, I also really like Brad Pitt, but I also find him kind of distracting as Tyler Durden and not necessarily aspirational.
Sure. I feel like the film, like the final 30 minutes, get a little messy, especially that montage of Ed Norton traveling, trying to follow, because now he's trying. At one point,
Durden disappears.
Tyler Durden disappears, and Ed finds a bunch of like flight tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to all those places.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that felt a little nonsensical and chaotic, because it's like you see Ed Norton flying all around and going to all these bars asking about Tyler Durden, and it's clear that all these people know about Fight Club and that he's created all these little like franchises of Fight Club.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels kind of like the final act is really rushed.
Yeah, like we got to get to
we have to get to the end.
And then, at the end of the book, he ends up it's very Catcher in the Rye. He ends up in an insane asylum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lived. The end of the book is much more hopeful than the end of this film.
Wow.
Which feels kind of like a toxic romance, even though you could swoon listening to the Pixies, right, through the end credits. But
what else would you like to say about this movie?
The soundtrack, by the way, is by the Dust Brothers. Fincher, again, looking back as a kid watching Fincher's first few films, now it's like, oh, he has a thing with his opening film credits for sure, which I do like. My favorite opening film credits of a Fincher film are, Alien 3, but The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with Karen O and Trent Reznor. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I already said I would say it's excellent. I think that while there are some things that don't entirely work for me, I think the fact that there was so much to talk about, it also feels like a moment.
It definitely was a moment, yeah.
And again, I could see how people are really into this film.
I mean, if you look on Letterboxd, like Helena Bonham Carter, who is in Harry Potter movies, this film is her most watched film. I mean, to me, that's also kind of an indication of just how potent and influential this film is.
So I think for those reasons, I would give this film 4 out of 5.
You're gonna give it 4? Wow.
Well, because it's like, I don't know. It does feel like an experience watching it, and it did make me think a lot.
Yeah.
And I do with some films, I often want to like take a moment and think. I don't know. This film made me want to try to understand it more than just my initial like, oh, it's pretty good, and I didn't like the ending.
Yeah.
I think it's very effective.
It is, and talking about it, I think, makes it feel more effective as well. And I'm really glad I also read the book before rewatching it. But I feel like we barely tapped into some of the things. But I'd have to say that, because my initial thought was I was going to give this 3.5, but it really is, I don't know, so much more than just a film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about, but it just feels very rich and bold. I was also going to say that, because I often like to think about things like from like if I were a producer or a studio executive instead of an artist, because I'm not creative. And I think that if this film came across my desk, either the script or the final product to approve for like marketing spend, I think that I would be for this movie. Like as an executive, I would think, you know what, even though it's kind of bold and maybe controversial, I would say I would greenlight it, because I think that you could count on a cult following.
Yes, and also, kind of speaking against the very industry that is
financing it.
Financing it.
So I think that I'm maybe giving it a little extra love just for seeming bold.
It's definitely bold. And
Yeah.
if anything, Fincher is a fantastic director. I don't know.
Anyway, what's your score?
I think in speaking about it with you, I think that this is a 4 for me as well.
All right. Next week, I know we have reviews for The Surfer and Rosario coming out. I know I have to go watch Thunderbolts, which I have no interest in. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think maybe something. I don't know.
We continue to persist until we don't.
That is.
Are you reading anything?
I read several things this week, actually. I finished Fight Club, which I really liked. I read a book by this Brazilian author, Ana Paula Maia, called Of Cattle and Men. And I read that because she's written many things. Also is compared to Clarice Lispector quite a bit. I think there's even a quote on the back of that book that's like, one of the few Brazilian women you have to read after Clarice Lispector or something. Anyway, really like that. But she came across my radar because Marco Dutra, a Brazilian director I quite like, had adapted Bury Your Dead, of course, which is a book that has not been translated into English. So this is the next best thing. And I believe it shares the same lead character across both those texts. Anyway, highly recommended. It's a brief little read. And then I also, I thought this was so good. Christ Stopped at Eboli, written by Carlo Levi, who is a painter, and this is the only thing he wrote. And it's was published in the 40s, highly influential Italian novel, set in the 30s when he was a political prisoner because he was anti-fascist, was sent to southern Italy to live. In the book, it's for 3 years. Francesco Rossi, of course, adapted this into a very long film that I'm making my way through right now. But it's basically just relating his relationship with the locals in this very small Italian village, and that was malaria stricken, and just the level of description, and also a brief read. And I was really unhappy to learn that Mr. Levy didn't write anything else, again, because he was a painter. But this was such an excellent book that I've had sitting on my shelf for years and years and years. And so I finished that, and now I'm reading Boys Alive by Pier Paolo Pasolini, who is a man that you should be familiar with.
Because
he's a very famous filmmaker that was murdered.
Pasolini?
Yeah, I think we did a review of Teorema.
Oh, yes, the shark movie. Well, it's like the threesome shark movie, right?
That's Tintorera.
Oh.
Teorema is where Terrence Stamp...
Then I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
Oh, is that where he goes to this family and has sex with everyone?
Yes, with Silvana Mangano. Excellent film. I'm
surprised I remember that.
Mama Roma. You still haven't seen Salo or 120 Days of Sodom either, but
well, I'm living it.
Anyway, he wrote several books that I've never read, so I'm happy to finally be reading one.
All done?
Yeah.
Ta-ta.